Rachel here with Yarn at Play Crochet. Today I'm going to do a tutorial for you on this V-neck kind of lacy stitch cowl that I did. And it's very, very fringy. And so it comes down to a V here. I'll post a picture right up here so you can see what it looks like, not in close-up, so you can get an idea what the full picture of this cowl looks like. But I did turn it into a cowl rather than it just being like a triangle scarf. But it is worked up like a triangle scarf. And here, I'll show you how I did that in the back. So I wanted it to be a cowl because I didn't want to have the loose end. So all I did is I just overlapped it a bit. And then I just ran a single crochet stitch across the top where the overlap was so that it turned into a cowl. You can do it however you want to. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to turn it into a cowl. But I was happy with the length of the triangle V in the front and I didn't want it to be any longer. And for my neck, it just wasn't quite long enough around for it to really be a true triangle scarf, so I turned it into a cowl. And I'm really happy with it. I'm not the kind of person who likes to have things that can fall off my neck because my daughters are always pulling on everything that I have, so a cowl functions better for me because they can't pull that off of me. But if you want to just leave it as a triangle scarf, you definitely can do that as well. So I will go ahead and show you how I worked this up. And I'm going to just be using some yarn that I got from the Dollar Tree. Oh, and I lost my end. I'm really good at losing my ends when I try to start a tutorial. Not the first time this has happened. I'm just using some yarn that I got from the Dollar Tree. This is Premier Just yarn, just worsted. I can't remember what exactly it's called. If you're in the States, you can go to Dollar Tree. They should have it there. They have lots of different colors, and it's nice because it's an inexpensive yarn. It's only $1 per skein. And that makes it a really nice affordable yarn to work with, practice with, play with, make cool stuff out of. And I did a yarn haul review of this yarn. I haven't done an in-depth yarn review of this yet, but if you're interested in that, I'll put that up in the cards as well, so you can take a look at that and get more of the details on the yarn. But I'm using this yarn with a 5mm crochet hook. So to start, you just put a slip knot on your hook, and then you're going to chain 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. And then you're going to start working into that first chain that you just made. Now, everybody kind of does this a little bit differently. I like to start my rows when I'm double crocheting into the first stitch of a row instead of using a chain 3. I call it a stacked single crochet. I don't know if there's a technical term for it. This is just how I like to do it. It makes it look a little bit nicer, I think, than the standard chain 3 and turn your work. So I'll show you how to do this in a minute, how I do this. So you're going to go no yarn over. You're just going to go into that first stitch there that you just made. Put 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over. Pull through and yarn over and pull through 2, just like a standard single crochet. And then I put my hook into this little post of yarn right here. So I stick my hook right in that front post of the V of the single crochet, and then I yarn over and I pull through, and then I yarn over and then pull through 2. So that is how you make that stitch function. You can use that on any place in a pattern where you have a double crochet as the turning chain of your row. And as we get into it, you'll kind of see how that works. But just to start, that's how I start and do my first double crochet into that stitch. Then I'm going to do 2 more double crochets into that chain right there. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then do one more double crochet into that same stitch right there. This is the most fiddly part of the scarf, and once you kind of get past this foundation, it is much less fiddly and it goes really fast. So there is your 3 double crochet into that first chain that you made, and then you're going to go ahead and chain 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and that's going to be where our V point starts. And then you're going to go ahead and do 3 more double crochet right into that same chain stitch. So for your first row, everything is worked into that very first chain that you made. So 3 more double crochet into that chain. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to turn my corner. So to do that, I'm just going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work, and then I'm going to make a stacked double or single crochet like I did over here. So go ahead and to start in that very first stitch there, do a single crochet, and then you see the V, you have your 2 points of your V right here where the yarn goes into the stitch. Put your hook into that front loop of the V, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's going to count as your first double crochet. And then go ahead and do one more double crochet into that first stitch right there. And that's going to be the starting pattern for every time we turn. You're going to want to do 2 double crochets into your first stitch, and then when we get over here to this side, we're going to do 2 double crochet into this stitch as well. That keeps your top of your cowl, gives it that nice straight edge, even though you're going to be working in a V formation. So double crochet into the next 2 stitches. One, 2, and then now that you're here at your V, you're going to do 2 double crochet into this big gap space here. One, 2, and if you're familiar with how to do the corners of a granny square, this is going to feel very familiar to you. So now that we have our 2 double crochet into this big gap space, go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to do 2 more double crochet into your big hole here. One, and 2. Now you're going to do double crochets into the next 3 stitches to get to your edge. One, 2, and now your last stitch here, because we did our stacked single crochet turn, it might look a little bit unfamiliar for you as to what the stitch that you're going to be working into here is. But if you kind of see how this right here, it does have the 2 V's that you look for in a stitch that you go into, but it just kind of tucks down a little bit. So you might not really recognize that that's where you need to be working into, but that is where you want to go, is right into that right there, that next stitch, and you will have 2 strands because you're going through a full stitch. So do your first double crochet, and then do your second double crochet to finish off your second row. And now if you are not really wanting to do the stacked single crochet turn, you can always just do the chain 3 and then turn and count that first chain 3 as your first double crochet. So that would look like this: 1, 2, 3, turn, and then you would do another double crochet into that first stitch, because you need to have 2 double crochet into that that first stitch here. But I prefer to do the stacked single crochet because that doesn't give me any holes. Like, that'll leave a hole. You can see here I have no holes where I do the stacked single crochet. So it's completely preference, but for me, I wanted to show you how to do it the stacked single, because I think it gives kind of a nicer edge and it doesn't leave any holes or gaps, and it keeps things nice and straight. So to do that, you just do chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into that first stitch, and in that front V, that front little piece of yarn right there, slide your hook into there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then do 1 more double crochet into that same stitch, and then keep double crocheting along the edge until you get to your gap here. Hopefully by now you're kind of picking up on what the row repeats are. So the formula is 2 double crochet into the first stitch, and then you double crochet all the way along until you get to your big hole, your V point, your corner turn. And then when you get to this point where you're doing your corner turn, you do 2 double crochet into your big gap here. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, then 2 more double crochet into your big gap here. And then double crochet along the length here. And then when you get to the last stitch, you're going to do 2 double crochet into your last stitch. So double crochet along your edge. And every row we're increasing our stitches, and that is how we work this so it turns into one big giant triangle. So we're on our last stitch here. Remember, it kind of pulls down a little bit. See if I can get that close and focused in so you can see it a little better. So you're looking for that stitch right there. If you kind of pinch it and twist it up, you can see the stitch that you're looking for. So yarn over, go into that stitch right there, and do 2 double crochet into that last stitch. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 rows of double crochets to get us started here. Now we're going to make our turn again. So chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into that first stitch, put your hook into the front V yarn loop, pull up a loop, and pull through 2. And then do 1 more double crochet into that same stitch again. That's always going to stay the same no matter what we're doing. You're always going to do 2 double crochet into that first one there. Get some more yarn off my skein here. And now this is where we change up the pattern. So we have our 2 double crochet into our first stitch. And now instead of double crocheting all the way along, we're gonna skip some stitches and do some chains so that we get this kind of the peephole effect. See that? So this is the row that we're gonna be working on now, one of the rows that look like this. So chain 1, skip a stitch, go into the next one with a double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, go into the next one with a double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch into the second, and keep repeating that until you get to the end here. So chain 1, and then skip this one. So your last one before you get to your corner should be into your very last double crochet. And now instead of doing 2 double crochet into our gap here to turn our corner, I'm going to chain 1 and then double crochet 1 time into this corner space. Chain 3. Double crochet into your big gap space. Chain 1. And now we're not going to skip this first stitch here because the way that this works, we're doing back in these rows, we did 2 double crochet into our corner. So we did a double crochet here, we did a chain, so that takes the place of the first double crochet. Now we're doing, this counts as our second double crochet into that if we were on our other row. We did our chain 3, and so now this here counts as our first one. This little chain here counts as our second one. So we're going to go into that first stitch there. We're not skipping any stitches right here. And that will keep your stitch count correct all the way around. So if you wind up and you get all the way through and you feel like your stitch count is wrong, I've done that before where my stitch count's been off, and it's because I was just running on autopilot and I was doing chain 1 skip, and I chained 1 and then I skipped this first stitch here. So just keep that in mind. When you're on your corner, you want to do double crochet, chain 1, and then do your next double crochet into that very first stitch right there. So then chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet all the way along this edge. Until you get back to your corner. Oh, and I got a knot in my yarn. Of course I did. Pulled off too much. There we go. Chain 1, skip a stitch, chain 1, and then skip this stitch and go into your corner stitch right there, the one that kind of curves down slightly right there, and do your 2 double crochet to end your row in that stitch. So even on these rows where we're changing our pattern, the corner stitches are always the same. You're always going to do 2 double crochet into the last stitch of your row every single time. And then from here, we're going to turn our corner again. So chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into the first stitch, put your hook in that first V loop, and do a single crochet, and then do a double crochet into that same stitch again. So we get our double crochet increase. And then to go along the row here, we're just going to do another row of double crochet. So that is a sequence pattern repeat. So it's 3 rows of solid double crochets and then 1 row of chain and double crochets. And that's how you do it. You just keep repeating that pattern all the way down the length of the cowl. So for this one, we're going to do, we did our 2 double crochet. We're going to do our next one into the next stitch that's right here. So that is into the top of that double crochet right there. And then you're just going to do your next double crochet into the gap space. And then do your next double crochet into the top of this double crochet right here. And then double crochet into the space. Double crochet into the top of the stitch. Double crochet into the space, double crochet into the top of your stitch, double crochet into the space, into the top of your stitch, into the gap, into the top of your stitch, and now we're back at our V-point corner, and we're going to treat it just like we did with our solid double crochet rows down here. So do 2 double crochet into the V space, chain 3, and 2 double crochet into that same space again. Then double crochet into the top of the stitch. And then you're going to do the same thing along your edge here. So into the gap for your next one. Into the top of the stitch, into the gap, into the top of the stitch, into the gap, into the top of the stitch again, and into the gap, and into the top of the stitch, one last time into the gap, into the top of your first double crochet stitch, and then this is our last stitch, the one that curves down just a smidge. Do 2 double crochet into that last stitch. And then you will be ready to make your next turn. So that should give you the basic pattern. So you're going to keep doing exactly what you've been doing until your scarf reaches the length that you want it to be. And I can't remember, I'm not exactly sure how many total rows I did on this. I will count them up when I'm done with this. And I will put it right here. So you know exactly how many rows I wound up doing in total. But that's just the pattern repeat that you follow. So it's 3 rows of solid double crochets, and then it's 1 row of double crocheting chains, and then it'd be 3 more rows of solid crochet, and then double crocheting chains, and you just keep going until you get to the length or size that you want. And if you want it to be exactly the same size as mine, I will give you the total amount of rows that I did. The only thing that I did that I will show you is that when I finished this, I did finish it. So the bottom of my scarf does end after I do 3 rows of solid double crochet. So I wanted it to look like nice and solid at the bottom, and I wanted something nice and solid for me to put all of this fringe into. So that is the basic pattern for this. And as far as doing my fringe, the way that I did my fringe, here, I will grab a scrap piece of yarn here and I'll just show you how I did my fringe. So when I'm measuring out my fringe, what I like to do is I like to grab a book, and like a hardcover book. And it's usually like a children's storybook because that gives me the length that I want. I wrap the yarn around the book a bunch of times, so that I know that it's they're all going to be even. And then I get a scissors and I cut the top and the bottom of the yarn. So I have a bunch of pieces of yarn that are exactly the same length. And then I just hold on to those and I go around and I do my fringe. So to do fringe, all you have to do is put your hook in to whatever stitch you're working on. Then you have your length of yarn. You have it folded in half so you have a loop. That's all that this loop is coming from. I didn't tie a knot or anything. It's just folded in half. Put that on your hook. Pull up a loop. Wrap both strands around your hook. And pull both strands through the loop. And all the way through. And then just secure it down. And that is all you have to do to attach fringe. It's a bit time consuming. And not everybody likes a fringy scarf, but I love a fringy scarf. And so for me, it was definitely worth the time and effort to go ahead and fringe out that scarf. I really love the way that this turned out. I have a feeling that come fall, I'm going to be wearing this quite a bit. And it worked up really fast. You can definitely get this scarf done in a day, no problem. If you're working on it through the day, it shouldn't be an issue for you to work it up. And it works up, once you kind of get going, you get in a rhythm. It's a pretty mindless pattern too. It's not something that requires a lot of mental energy. It's just kind of something nice to keep your hands busy, and it winds up working up really, really beautifully. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that it was helpful. If it was helpful, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. If you haven't already, and if you're on Facebook, go ahead and check out my Facebook group. That way, if you decide to stitch this up for yourself, you can share your pictures of it there, and then I can see your finished objects, which I always love, love, love to see. I will be sure to link the group description in the box below, so you can just click on that link, hop over to Facebook, and join the group. But in the meantime, I will leave that there. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I can't wait to see all the wonderful projects that you work up. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.